Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is meaning, which will be fun to dig into. But before we do that, let's just take a minute to settle in and get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold it and feel the oxygen just coursing through your body, into your lungs and into your bloodstream and nourishing every part of you. And then as you exhale, exhale any tension in your neck and your shoulders, your back, your legs, your arms. And take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And this time imagine bright, brilliant white light sparkling through you, through every cell in your body, into every organ and beyond your body, connecting you to the world outside. And let's exhale any remaining tension. And now let's just gently press our palms together and really softly, gently rub your fingers against your palms so that you can feel the tickling in your fingers and in your palms, and just how delicious that feeling is to start the week with this morning. Where, if it's morning for you, it's Monday. And so let's talk about meaning. Uh, First, I want to say welcome. Welcome to everybody who's here. I'm delighted to have you here and to share this time with you. It's such a treat for me. And it means everything to have this time together. So let's look at meaning. What is meaning? And is there any inherent meaning to anything? That we don't actually ascribe to it. Good morning, Kim. So glad to have you here. Welcome, welcome. So we're talking about meaning, Kim, and I think one of the big crises of my life was really a deep search for meaning and feeling like I needed meaning and purpose in my life to be able to continue even. Good morning, Jane. Welcome. It's actually, sorry, good evening to you. Jane, where are you coming here from? That it's evening where you are. Welcome. So glad to have you. I think you included the sign, but I mean flag, but I can't read it. Anyway, welcome. So let's look at meaning, because I think one of the, for me anyway, in my life, one of the biggest sources of depression was feeling a lack of meaning and purpose. And we are meaning making machines. We make meaning with everything that we experience. Australia, awesome, Jane. Well, thank you for being here. That's awesome. So let's look at meaning. So how do we create meaning? First off, we create meaning through the lenses that we listen to things. Good morning, Dido. Welcome. We're talking about meaning. I'm thrilled to have you here. So, we create meaning by the lenses that we perceive through. So, for instance, if maybe if I'm having a bad day and somebody says something grumpy to me, I might make it mean that they are unhappy with me in some way, when in fact it might have nothing at all to do with me, but I made it mean that this person doesn't like me or something like that. That's one way that we make meaning. I'm really looking for at how we make meaning in a grander scale, in terms of purpose and direction in life. And uh, I years ago I took a training. It was then the EST training. You guys may or may not be familiar with it. It then became Landmark Education, and I spent 3 days, and it was really a heavy duty boot camp with very limited bathroom breaks, and really, really long hours and very rigorous, and it was sort of military back in that time. It's since mellowed profoundly as humanity has evolved in awareness. But anyway, at the end of this thing, uh, the punchline for the whole weekend was life is empty and meaningless, and I lost it. I was furious. What do you mean life is empty and meaningless? Because for me, um, it's always my life has really been characterized by a search for meaning. And over the years, as I listen to that, what I hear into it is that the meaning that exists in life is meaning that we ascribe, meaning that we project and create, and that meaning is a human construct. And so I don't know if that's 100% true on all levels, um, that there is no meaning in life at all, like in an overall plan. But if there is, I'm not particularly privy to it. So, let's look at the meaning that we find in our lives. We find meaning in our relationships, we find meaning in our roles, for instance, as parent or sibling or friend, or we find meaning in uh, validation that we get from other people in terms of the kind of behaviors that we do. For instance, maybe we find meaning in contributing to others, in being able to assist others, to be able to make a difference in the lives of others. And in some way, I can see this empty and meaningless thing as something that could be very freeing, in that it allows us to generate our own meaning. So I'm wondering, for you guys that are here and open to participating, what in your life is are you finding meaning in? What is most meaningful to you? I think this time of COVID right now is a time where we really have had the opportunity to dig a little bit more deeply into what's meaningful for us. And this conversation for me comes from a little bit of a crisis of spirit, just sort of looking at the life that I live and how aligned it is with my values and my vision for what's possible in life. And I live in an apartment, and I live near Philadelphia, and I don't have a tremendous connection that is natural with nature, unless I get to go out and go to a park, or go to a forest, or to go somewhere to connect more deeply with nature, because I live in sort of a suburban environment. Thankfully, there are many, many trees and plants and birds and some animals around here, but it's not it's not really it's a suburb. It's a suburb. Jane says that she gains meaning working with children. And absolutely, Jane, that's awesome. And when you work with children, and nature, of course, thank you, Jane. She says nature also gives her meaning. I'm wondering, what is it about your interaction with children and with nature that provides meaning? And you know what I think, for me anyway, is, how do I know that something is meaningful? Right? Well, looking into how do I know that something is meaningful, it makes my heart happy. I feel a sense of being able to breathe into that experience. And I'm wondering, like, with children, the joy that you see in those children's faces, the connection that you have from heart to heart, is something that is enriching and fulfilling. And that fulfillment, we equate that fulfillment with meaning, I think. And Kim says, thank you so much, by the way, for you guys participating. Kim says, I think for me, I'm finding meaning in learning myself, walking in the woods, trying to be present with my 19 and 21-year-old. Yeah. And so the meaning there, I'm wondering if this sense of meaning really, when it comes down to, equates to an experience of fulfillment, an experience of love, an experience of connection. I think that those are the places where I actually find the most reward, and I think I probably do equate that with meaning. I'm wondering, is it the emotion that we're responding to and attributing meaning to the emotion and that connection? I'm interested in your feedback, Jane and Kim and Dido, if you guys have any input about that, because and anybody else who wants to play. This is an interesting thing to discover. But what I've been looking at for me is this lifestyle, and what's interesting is I have been exposed to and invited to an opportunity to live in an off-grid kind of community that is positive impact. In other words, that everything that is in part of that community creates a positive environmental impact and social impact, and I just, to be able to live in harmony with my values, with the planet, knowing that I'm contributing rather than taking away, environmentally, for instance, and being able to prioritize things in a different way that is in greater alignment. I think that for me is meaningful. Jane says, absolutely, it's a heart feeling and a sense of connection, this sense of meaning and purpose. And Dido says, for me, it's my teenage son, creating beauty in my surroundings, understanding history, experiencing spiritual expansiveness. That's beautiful. And you can hit on so many things here that I think we're pretty much in alignment with, is that the relationships, the people in our lives that we're deeply connected to, that we are able to contribute to, that we're able to make a difference with, that and have an impact and connection with, that creates meaning and enrichment and a deep sense of fulfillment, and creating beauty in my surroundings. So creating beauty and experiencing beauty, both of those things for me as well are really fulfilling, enriching experiences. And if I just tease that apart a little bit more, Dido, like creating, when we create things, there's a sense of purposefulness about that. We're generating something. We're tapping into another dimension of our internal experience and being, where this creative impulse emerges from, and that also is something that creates this sense of vitality and life. And understanding history, which is really interesting, because as we look at history, whether it's our personal history or uh, more global social history, um, it's interesting because by putting those pieces together, you might be able to tease together sort of a larger storyline, and that may create context that creates a sense of meaning and purpose and being part of a greater whole. And the same with spiritual expansiveness. So, if you're here on Enlightened World Network, my guess is that you have a spiritual orientation. And what is it about that that gives us a sense of meaning? I think it is like this connection and trust and um, awareness and acknowledgement of something much bigger than ourselves that we're part of and that we play some kind of instrumental role in. And I'm wondering, have you guys ever had an experience of like a crisis of meaning, of feeling lost without purpose or direction? Because for me, the thing that made the biggest difference in my search for meaning was taking on a mission, like my life's purpose kind of mission. And in taking on a mission and a purpose, that gave me a context for being that has expanded into every area of my life. So for me, in November of 2017, I took on a mission to create an eco park that is a phantasmagorical place to come and experience ways to live in concert with the planet and with each other. And I've spoken about it before, kind of like a World's Fair for Sustainability with all kinds of technologies and amazing, magical um, solutions for being able to live here on the planet in a way that will bring us to thriving rather than our destruction. So, like, I have this deep connection to the planet and the way we're living on it. And that coming into that declaration that this is me, this is not this is me as an identity, but this is a purpose that I can rise to and expand to and live into, that really created an entirely new context for me for life. And I'm wondering if how you experience that. I think so many of us in these very unusual times are looking more deeply at what do I really want? What do I really believe in? What are my deep values? How can I live more in line with those values, and how can I set priorities that support that alignment and that fulfillment and that enrichment and that contribution that makes me feel so deeply connected. So I'm wondering if you guys have experienced any of these questions lately, and what kinds of new opportunities are opening up to you as a result of touching into what makes your heart sing. What is your heart calling for? Have you become aware of any new impulses that weren't there before all of this social isolation and upheaval of social norms that maybe shook loose some of the entrenched patterns and beliefs? I know for me, this is, moving into an environment that's off grid and self sufficient has been there for a number of years. However, I'm noticing that the impulse to actually take action toward that is expanding radically, and is calling to me more and more vividly. And I'm wondering if your hearts are speaking to you any more vividly during this time, that are and calling you to to step into something that has been a dream of yours. Because I believe our dreams are also an important source of meaning for us. The things that we dream about are the things that we we consider meaningful on some level or another, right? So how are you shifting, if at all, toward your dreams? Are you letting go of old dreams that you realize are not as important to you, or are you adopting new dreams? Are you deepening the dreams that you've already had? I'm really curious if you would love to share. I would love you to share, what kinds of awarenesses you're having about cultivating these dreams, and maybe different songs that your soul is starting to sing in these very, very interesting times. Kim says, I thank you, Kim. I feel like my heart calls for peace. Wow, that's huge. That's so huge because in this moment, oh my gosh, this is a time of turmoil, and I hear your call for peace, trying to purposely live peacefully and trying to pay attention to negative emotions and figure out how to think differently to be happy. That's beautiful, Kim. And I think peace is a place to start for sure. And as far as the negative emotions, oftentimes we misconstrue negative thought for negative emotions. And I think it's important to make a distinction because the emotions are maybe things that we judge, like anger and grief and frustration or impatience or jealousy, and we judge those emotions. If we allow ourselves to experience the emotions without all the negative thoughts, those emotions have a tendency to move through as we experience them. It's the thought patterns that we put on top of them that we use to generate them or to enrich them that often get in the way of experiencing peace. So Jane says, yes, so many things have come up for me in sustainability and how to help the next generations move into this planet with awareness and to nurture our Mother Earth. Jane, thank you for that. The sustainability issue for me is the number one thing because I really do believe that if we don't make radical changes very, very, very quickly, that we are not going to be left with the choices that we still have available, and that we will be um, creating well, a path to destruction for ourselves and so much of the life on the planet. We already are doing that, and there's so much action that we really need to take. And if you guys don't know, I have a podcast with my co-founder Scott Billy, and it's called Sustainability Now, and you can check it out at sustainabilitynow.global. But we're addressing lots and lots of issues about how we can actually live more in concert with the planet and with each other. So I invite you to check that out. Dido says, I'm noticing that some of what I do is not in line with my mission to be an archaeologist of the soul. I love that so much. Archaeologist of the soul. It's spectacular. So I have clarity now around what is and is not in line with that. And I'm working to drop that which is not in line. And I'm so glad you said that, Dido, because there's so, it takes courage. A lot of times, let's say, here's a perfect example. So let's say, well, let's say you're transitioning into really taking ownership of your mission, and you have a source of income that is essential. Well, I'm going to say that's the interpretation. That source of income is essential to being able to make our way, but it's not in line with the things that I care about, or I believe, or with my values, or with my mission. Coming to a point where you can transition out of that point of comfort or that point of assurance in in your financial state, to be able to move into this new expression is a really challenging thing to be faced with. And it takes a tremendous leap of faith sometimes. It takes planning, it takes putting things in place. And at some point, it does take a leap of faith to let go of what has provided security. Kim says, yes, me too, as far as working to drop those things that aren't in line. And I think it was Buckminster Fuller said something, I'm going to totally butcher this quote, but said something to the effect of, you can't displace old technologies by outlawing them. What you need to do is to bring new technologies in that surpass them. So what we need to do is to find the things that enliven us, so that the things that don't fall away more naturally. And yes, there are acts of courage that your soul calls out for you to declare, hey, I'm in, I am in. And when that declaration happens, oftentimes it's a pretty dramatic leap of faith. Then the world tends to support you in your conviction by creating magic that happens to move you in the direction of your fulfillment and your purpose. And so it's a tricky thing to be making that transition. I've made a bunch of those transitions in my life where I've reinvented myself, and sometimes they have been cataclysmically rocky and terrifying, and not just in a good way either. Like if you make that leap too soon, you can create a lot of havoc in your life, which I've done on more than one occasion. But there are these moments of transition that I believe we're faced with now more than ever. So, like this call for you, Kim, and for you, Dido, and for anybody else that it feels like it applies to, as we're making a transition into more authentic, more aligned expression. What I notice for me is that my dissatisfaction with the things that are out of alignment grows, and to the point where I am driven to make a transition. And sometimes it takes a while for that inner voice to really assert itself. But I notice for me it's getting louder and louder, and the urgency to be in alignment is getting greater and greater. And it sounds like you're experiencing that as well, is that it's time uh, to allow ourselves to be a deeper, more authentic expression of our values and our commitments and the meaning that we want our lives to have for ourselves and in the context of the world. So this is a big deal, right? So I'm wondering if you can look at where you are, and in the context of moving into greater alignment with where you're going, what what one action might you be able to take today that will move you closer to that wholeness and that alignment with where you desire to be, where you are heading. So, does anybody feel bold enough to make a declaration about one thing you can do today that will support you in being in closer alignment with the vision that you have for yourself and the meaning that you're making? And maybe it is reaching, if the meaning that you're creating for yourself is in relationship, maybe it's something as simple as reaching out to someone that matters to you to cultivate even a richer relationship. Um, for me, I'm having an important conversation today with somebody, with these folks, about this off-grid community to dig in more deeply and learn more. And I wonder, as we proceed toward our vision, our mission, the meaning that we're creating for ourselves, as we progress toward a fuller expression of that, if we can find something every day to do to support that, maybe even meditating on it, maybe even just feeling the feelings that we imagine ourselves to be feeling when we arrive. It doesn't have to be an outward, worldly sort of thing that we do, but I'm wondering what our lives would look like if we committed to doing something daily to grow into greater alignment with our our values, our purpose, our meaning. And it can be a joyful exploration and discovery. So that's the invitation, to find something, just at least one thing to do today that moves you toward greater alignment with yourself and your vision and your values and what's meaningful to you. And with that, I'm just going to say thank you again so much for being with me here today, and for sharing this time and sharing your hearts. And yeah, let's create the world of our dreams and live according to the song of our soul with lots of love. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and we're here on Enlightened World Network. Please check out the wonderful programming here. It's uplifting and supportive, and there's community to be built here. So I'm here every weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, and so much love and compassion. Thanks again for joining me.